Let me share the screen. Yeah. So hope my screen is fully shared.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible. Your audio is properly, absolutely good, and your video is also. I just also request to all the participants, if possible, then please turn on your video and turn off your mics. So thank you so much to all, and I request to once again Rajuji, Krishna Rajuji, so please start your session, sir.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sandeep Joshi. CMA Sandeep Joshi, thank you very much, the coordinator of ICMA RBO for webinar sessions. He is doing a very great job in bringing all of us together. Virtually connecting all of us is not a easy task. He has been doing it with ease. Thank you very much, Mr. Sandeep Joshi. And all the participants who are online, very good evening to one and all, and also my pranams to all the senior valuers. This is one topic which is very close to my heart, and I like this subject like anything, especially the intangible asset valuation is one of my favorite topics, I must say. And today I've got another opportunity to share my thoughts on valuation of intangible assets. Even though it is the timing is given as 120 minutes, I will actually present the session for the next 90 minutes. And then we'll hear from maybe the questions we will hear from various participants. And more we interact on this particular topic, and I'm sure we will learn a lot. I want to first start with this a GIFT. I think this is the first message I want to share with all of you. There is a global intangible finance tracker. This is actually a research report. I wish all of you read this report. It is an annual review on world's intangible value. So, and what this particular research report, 2020 report is not yet been published. You know the reason. 2019 report is there. I can give you the link also, and this is that link, and this is that particular link. I think my slide is, I think my screen is also visible to all of you. I am now showing a Google page with the link here, brandfinance.com/images/upload/gift_2.pdf. So this is that particular research report of, this is actually the Global Intangible Finance Tracker. There's an annual review of the world's intangible value. The latest is November 2019. And I'll be sharing with you only one inputs here. Please look at this table. What does this table signify? And I'll just share with you some of they have taken the top 100 companies in the world, and also they have also considered 400 other companies across the globe. So 500 companies they have analyzed. This is the breakdown of the corporate assets, including intangibles. If the enterprise value is 100 crore,
I think you will have to share the screen again. The presentation is not on a full screen right now.
Oh, okay. Right. So, sorry. Your entire. I think now it is visible.
Yes. Now it is coming.
Thank you. So this is that particular site which I referred to, and brandfinance.com. In that, this is the 2019 report where they have very clearly mentioned that out of the total enterprise value, 1/3 is tangible assets, and the remaining, that is 2/3, is intangible assets. And you'll be very surprised. Please look at this 2/3. Out of that, only 1/3 is disclosed. The balance 1/3 is undisclosed. And you will also agree with me that what is undisclosed intangible asset is the market premium to book value. So it's a very, it sounds very interesting to start our discussion on valuation of intangible assets, especially on this particular footing. And I want to share with you one interesting point that it is not only corporate assets where intangible assets are there, it is also non-corporates, small and medium enterprises, micro, small and medium enterprises. Today, every company, every organization, they have some intangible assets. And maybe I'll just share with you some very interesting episode. Maybe this photograph, all of you will agree with me. Maybe this photo, where is it? Yeah, this photograph. I think all of you will agree with me. There is one shop in Tirunelveli called Irukada Alva. And today, what is the brand value they have? What is the intangible asset they have? Even they have not brought it in their books of accounts. And please look at, this is a Udupi. This is behind, this is around the Udupi town. There is a very famous restaurant there. It's called Mitra Samaj. And Idli and dosa there is so famous. I think nobody will miss after having a darshan of Lord Krishna there. So, and all these are just a sample of intangible assets I'm just sharing with you. So, there are in Tamil Nadu, if you take, not only Tamil Nadu, every place in India, every city or every town has some significance. And those are the things which has never been brought into the books of accounts, or not recognized or not valued at all. So with this background, so I think the message driven by GIFT, that breakdown of corporate assets including intangibles, which says undisclosed intangibles, disclosed intangibles, and then tangible. And my understanding is today we have three verticals, otherwise called three asset class. What is it? Land and building, plant and machinery, securities and financial assets. And if you read the valuer's bill, they also made it very clear that it is not only that the asset class will be restricted to three, possibly other asset class also will be evolved over a period of time. And I believe one asset class which will be evolved over a period of time is intangible assets. And there is a need for specialization here. So what we have been valuing all these years is only the tangible asset part, not the intangible. So now let me take you into the particular subject, guys, which is going to be very interesting now. So the first point what I want to share with all of you is that in India, I just gave you an example of the global intangible finance tracker. Now please come to India. India, they say they top in Asia in intangible assets. That is also their report. But I want to share with you something very interesting. Indian businesses are connected with the cultural heritage. And this is not said by Indian government. It is not said by any state government. It is not said by any Indian. This has been said by the UNESCO, that there are 13 intangible cultural heritage elements from India inscribed on UNESCO's list till date. And what is that? This is that list. And maybe you can look at some of the places, like look at this. Vedic chanting is it is actually an intangible cultural heritage. And please look at in Kerala, the Mudiyettu is the intangible heritage. Please look at Manipur, Yoga, Kumbh Mela. All these are some of the examples of what they call it as intangible cultural heritage. And today, if you go to any places like Kanchipuram, a place like Dharmamaram, okay, a place like Agra, a place like Madurai, they all connect with the cultural heritage only, and business happens only because of the cultural heritage, which is an intangible asset. So with this background, I'm now taking you inside three things. Okay. So I will be referring to all these three standards. So whatever the prescription of these three standards, even though our discussion is on valuation of intangible assets, here and there I will go and pick up some of the prescriptions from Ind AS 38 also, not with respect to the accounting and recognition or derecognition, etc., but with respect to the measurement part. So in Ind AS 38, there is a measurement part. So that portion alone, I'll try to actually give references to you. Apart from that, I'll be referring to these two standards, IVS 210, intangible assets, and the ICAI RBO valuation standards 302, intangible assets. So all this three standard is my base for my presentation today. And I want to make one observation before I go into the main topic, that in the entire standard, there is a term called may, must, and should. And I want to make this point very clear that, of course, whenever the standard uses the word called may, so it means you can either, you have an option. So you have a responsibility to consider, and you can drop it also. So that means the standard is not mandating. So there is no compulsory. There is no compulsion. Okay. So now, please look at this two terms, must and should. Now, what is the difference between these two terms? This is what I want to make it very clear. The term must and should means, wherever the word, I want to actually relate this with maybe spouse and maybe mother. Okay. So this is actually, it is a dilemma always with guys. Whom should we hear, whether mother or spouse? Of course, whatever spouse is, for example, spouse will say, I need a half a kilo or 1 kilo lady's finger. Okay, then it is must. M means must. Okay, so what spouse says is must. But when Amma says, okay, go and bring 1 kg lady's finger, so it is not must, it is should actually. Why? Because maybe if lady's finger is not there, I may bring brinjal also. I may bring, what is it? The murungakai also I will bring. Okay, drumstick also I will bring. So what the term that is used here, it is called responsibilities that are presumptively mandatory unless alternative actions can be followed. So that means you can come with an explanation. Amma, I am not able to get this fresh vendaka or fresh vegetable, so I am going for what is an alternative. So valuers, whenever there is a prescription, the standard called should, it means you must consider not necessarily the same, but an alternative can be considered. But whenever the word must is used, please ensure there is no alternative. You have to follow. That's it. Okay, no second thought. So global intangible finance tracker, then ICH, I have made a point. I've driven the point. I have also driven the point that I'll be referring to three standards. And I have also referred to three words, what you call it as may, must, and should. Now I'm taking you to the very, very important term. It is called as intangible asset. And I want to tell you guys, okay, this is the comparison between both the standards. And this is the definition I want to share with all of you. Okay. And this is a definition used in Ind AS 38, IVS 210, and ICAI RBO. In ICAI RBO 302 only speaks about intangible asset. You will be surprised. The definition is given in the definition standard. There is a separate standard for definitions in ICAI RBO. In ICAI RBO valuation standards, you have a separate standard for definition. It's called ICAI RBO 101. Okay, so where you have, and please look at this definition. I want to tell you something very, very important in this definition. And there are three terms I want to catch. I want you to catch these three terms. And intangible, because whenever next another topic I'll just jump to the next paras. I'll again refer to this. See, this is identifiable. This is non-monetary. This is without physical substance. Now, I want all of you to focus your attention on this term called identifiable. This is one thing. This is one thing which is not identifiable in IBS student. See, what is IBS student? This is the definition for intangible asset in IBS student. What is it? An intangible asset is a non-monetary asset. Okay, very good. It is here that manifests itself by its economic properties. Okay, it does not have physical substance. Good, without physical, but grants rights or other economic benefits to its owner. What do you call it as control and future economic benefit? That term has also been discussed in India is 38. So that means you should be able to exercise control on that intangible asset. So then only, what do you call it as, you can actually recognize, measure, and then recognize in books of accounts as a separate asset. You want to identify it as separate. Sometimes it is not separable. It is not identifiable. For example, there is one restaurant for sale. There is one restaurant for sale. And that restaurant is very good, for example, a South Indian restaurant for sale, which has some good brand value. So their coffee is very good, say filter coffee. It's people, they come morning as well as in evening only to have that filter coffee. Or that bhaji, bonda, or some vada, or some hot idlis. Certain things are very famous there. So now the guy is actually selling his business. He says, see, stock and barrel, entire thing I'm selling it to you. I'm not interested to sell sofa separate, table separate, spoon separate, the coffee separate, the tumbler separate, nothing like that. No, master, that master G alone, I will you just give me, I will pay you some concern. No. Business or total. Sometimes these intangible assets cannot be separable. It is not identifiable. So, why I am mentioning this particular part is, then you are doing the business valuation, not intangible asset valuation. Please understand this. This word is very important, and I want to share with you here that please look at this Ind AS 38. Ind AS 38, para number 11 and 12. Because what is identifiability means? There are two words with respect to identifiability. Separable. Or, please look at this word, or. This is not and, it is or. Separable means it is then evaluate, then only the valuation part will come. If it is not identifiable, so sometimes business valuation. No, I want to sell my hotel as a total. Hotel as a total I want to sell. Tell me what is the value. Where you cannot identify the intangible assets because along with the bundle only people will be interested. Along with the bundle. So it includes intangible asset. It is not separable. So please look at this. An asset is identifiable if it is either separable or arise on contractual or legal rights, regardless whether those rights are transferable or separable from the entity or from other rights and obligations. What is this rights? For example, I am producer of Master, the film which is yet to be screened. Film is yet to be screened. I am producer, but the screening rights, the distribution rights, I will give to somebody. Then it is an identity. That rights alone, I'll give it in a piece of paper. See, next 3 months, you are the distributor rights for the entire Andhra Pradesh, the entire Telangana. Okay, the Telugu rights is yours. Take it. You dub it in the Talabadi Vijay is a film. You dub it in that, and then you release it there. Very simple. Arises from the contractual or other legal rights, regardless of whether those rights are transferable or separable from the entity or from other rights. Meaning, this right I'm giving it to you. You want to give it this right to somebody else. I am giving the next 3 months, I have given the right. After that, you want to give sub rights. One right, you want to give it to 100 people. That guy will take Andhra right, and then he will sell it to Guntur separately, he will sell. Then Srikakulam separately he will sell. So then it is up to him. That is why the term is like that. So when you have the right, it is identifiable. Or it is separable. Separable means capable of being separated. So your valuation will come only if it is identifiable. That has been very nicely been put by ICARVO as well as IND-AS 38. Identifiable, non-monetary, without physical substance. But indirectly, IBS 210 speaks about it. What is it? It does not have physical substance, but grants. So this word is embodied in identifiable. Because what is identifiable? Separable. Arises on legal or other contractual rights. That is here. So IBS 210 doesn't use the word called identifiable, but they indirectly use that word called but grant rights under economic benefits to its owner. So that is what it is. So three things. Why it is called non-monetary asset? Why not monetary asset? But remember one thing, guys, that what is monetary asset? Sometimes I am a businessman who will buy and sell intangible asset. Wow. So buy and sell, then there won't be a question for valuation at all. So it is only a commodity for me. Whatever may be it is only a price. There is no value for it. I don't consider it as a valuable product. I only consider it as a mal. I only consider it as a goods. So intangible asset can be goods. So for example, I am only a dealer in software and dealer in software, meaning I will buy, I will sell. For me, that is a goods. Okay, that is why I want to tell you an interesting thing. In the pre-GST era, on software, VAT also was levied, and on software, service tax was also levied. Very interesting. So all these things have some linkage. So please be very clear about it. Okay. So why it is non-monetary? Because it is monetary means it is a stock. So the question of valuation will never come. There is only pricing there. Without physical substance. So that means you cannot see by naked eye. So that is all of us are very clear about it. With the intangible asset means tangible you can touch and see. Intangible you cannot touch and see. So that part all of us are very clear. These are the two parts you need to actually pay attention, especially the word identifiable. So IND-AS 38 as well as ICARVO 101 follows the same definition. IBS 210 uses a different one. So this is point to start with. What I have explained. Now, why I need to explain. So what is explained? Now next is why. Why you want to value intangible asset? Why you want to value intangible asset? Purpose. Remember, guys, there is a 5-step process in valuation. Takku. First step is purpose. Second step is base. Third step is premise. So once you understand the purpose, then only you will go for the base, then only you will go for the premise, then only you will go for the approaches, then only you will go for the method. This is how I will go. I will not directly jump to the approaches. I need to first understand what is intangible asset. Second, why. Why you want to do the valuation? Why you want to do the valuation? Very simple. Now I will take you to this para, especially the why is here. 20.10. This is the purpose. And I want to share with you one more thing also. This is para 20.10. Para 20.10 speaks about the purpose of intangible asset valuation, as well as ICARVO 302 intangible asset. Para 2 speaks about the purpose of intangible asset valuation. And here you will be surprised actually. The ICARVO 302 intangible asset para 2 speaks about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. 10 points are given. And all these 10 points, for your kind information, certain areas, again, where intangible assets are required to be valued. So even this 10 is a sample only, example only, not comprehensive. But look at our IVS 210. In IVS 210 para 20.10, they speak about purpose. How many? Only 5. So IVS says there are 5 purpose. Again, these 5 are a non-exhaustive list. They are very clear. And the sample purpose, and purpose means what I will tell you. But don't think that it is exhaustive. Similarly, where ICRV 202 intangible assets also say purpose. But again, they say certain areas. The importance of valuing intangible asset arises from the fact that the reported net worth of the business may not be reflecting its true value. So that is why we understood from this table. Please look here. Enterprise value consists of your equity, debt, and premium, and that means it consists of tangible assets and intangible assets. It consists of tangible assets and intangible assets. So is it actually combined? Sometimes if it is separable, you need to do the valuation. If it is non-separable, you will actually surprise. I want to show you one table. Very, very interesting chart. Please look at this. The top 100 companies. This is the top 100 companies by total intangible value. I'll just start with, maybe many of you will be having Apple iPhone. Please look at Apple company. Apple company is a technology. Total enterprise value is $874 billion. Out of that, $675 billion, please, almost 75% is intangible value. And what is tangible? $199 billion. Babre. See, what is very less? And look at the undisclosed intangible value, 675. Okay. So 675 is intangible. Disclosed goodwill is 0. Net disclosed intangible is 0. Tangible net asset value is 199. Okay. Total intangible value to enterprise value is 77. So Apple, the entire intangible value 675 is undisclosed intangible. And they have it has been valued. And please look at this. Out of 874, 70, it is almost 77%. And Microsoft 90%. Today, the moment I say spreadsheet, you tell me 3 types of spreadsheet. What will come to your mind? Everybody will only say MS Excel. After that, only what is a Libre Corporation, Open Office, this, Lotus 1, 2, 3, all the other stuff will come immediately. That is why 90%, 860. So very interesting subject is this, and I'm telling you, henceforth you find any balance sheet where intangible asset is not there, but they are in the business for the past at least more than one generation. There are companies which have survived for 2 generations, 3 generations, 4th generation. Definitely intangible asset should be there in their balance sheet. And if it is not there, he is a client for you. He is a very important client for you. And maybe if you are the auditor or you are the maybe a very close associate or investor, you need not do valuations. Your friend can do valuation. My good friend Ramji is also participant here. He will do the valuation. So therefore, very interesting subject is intangible asset. And please look at some of the purpose. Okay, what is the purpose? Once you understand the purpose, then your valuation, your focus will actually will differ. I mean, your method, your approaches will actually start from the purpose. Now, please look at this financial reporting. This is the first purpose. This is even given by IVS. I am not saying. So that means go to Ind AS 38. So IVS 210 says go 5 financial reporting purpose. I want to share with you this part. Please look here. Management's best estimate. Best estimate. Look at para 22. It is in bold color. Now, this is actually, it comes in which paragraph is measurement. Measurement and intangible asset. Very important. I told you I'll refer to Ind AS 38 also. Para 22. What para 22 says? In India is 36, 38. An entity, company. They don't use the word company at all in India. That is why corporate, non-corporate, both it will apply. An entity shall assess the probability of expected future economic benefits, provided it is identifiable, separable, or legal rights is there, and non-monetary asset, and no physical substance. An entity shall assess the probability of expected future economic benefits using reasonable and supportable assumptions. Now, who will do it? Auditor will do it. Valuer will do it. Who will do this? That represent management's best estimate. This guy, management only has to do valuation of the set economic value. Now, management, if may have a team of experts, he may retain it, or he may take the help of my good friend Ramji, who's a registered valuer, who's a cost accountant, who's a chartered accountant, who's a company secretary. He will do the management's best estimate. He will do the valuation. So, intangible asset, please look at this, the purpose. Okay. And what the purpose, IBS says purpose. The word purpose refers to the reason valuation is performed. Common purpose is financial reporting. First word itself is financial reporting. And today, COVID-19, I'm telling you guys, COVID-19, there are many businesses which are affected. Many businesses which are affected. So, their intangible assets which is measured in their books of accounts, recognized in their books of accounts, will be remeasured because there will be remeasurement and there can be derecognition from their books of accounts. From 800 crores, it can come to 400 crores. 400 crores, where I will go? I will write off only in P&L account. India allows it. Please. You can value upward also, you can value downward also. Financial reporting, valuation of intangible assets are often required in connection with accounting for business combination, asset acquisition, sales, impairment. Now, impairment. So, if the share value is less, I will, what do you call it as charge off to P&L account. India is 38 allows it. Further, you need a valuation. Tax reporting. Today, guys, intangible asset valuations are frequently needed for ad valorem taxation analysis. Today, I want to tell you guys, very interesting. A lot of interesting examples are there in income tax also. In income tax, especially sometimes there will be a component which will be called as an intangible component. And for that intangible component, especially transfer pricing analysis. Transfer pricing analysis is actually technically they are coming out with a value. What should be the value for that particular transaction? What is the actual transaction price? So transaction price, transaction value. Transaction value, if it is 180 and transaction price is only 120, you will say 60 rupees you have underpriced. So 60 rupees sale tax. Very, very sensitive. Very sensitive. So, and litigation, intangible asset may be subject of litigation. One guy will say, no, he has paid less and taken a very high value. So I am putting a case, it is not correct. So all this stuff will be there, especially with respect to marital dissolutions, damage calculations, all this stuff, very, very interesting. So statutory legal events, valuation of intangible assets for compulsory purchase or domain proceedings, and also for collateral lending, transactional engagements, consulting. You can go on. And recently, I want to tell you for bankruptcy purpose also, for mergers and acquisitions, issuance of sweat equity shares, ESOP. So, today I will say, I'll give you an offer of ESOP at say 70 rupees. But I will allot only 3 years later, provided you work with me. But that day, even though the offer price is 70, the market price will be 190. So intangible is involved in this. So very, very interesting subject. So maybe I must say that ESOP is one place where lot of ESOP, share-based transactions, all these places, intangibles are automatically involved. So I'm just giving you the dimensions. What is the purpose? So based on the purpose, your evaluation approach will differ. So I started with Global Intangible Finance Tracker. Then I said there are 3 standards I'll be referring to here and there. The definition of intangible assets, purpose we have understood. Then we understood the difference between may, must, and should. Now I am taking you to very, very important part. That is the types of intangible assets. So once we understand the types of intangible asset, then I will take you to the types of valuation. That is the approaches. And after that, I'll also share with you one type. I'll try to share with you some arithmetic examples also. Okay, with the available time. I'll try to share even few arithmetic examples which are most complicated. I'll also try to share with you so that you'll have a fair idea. So what I am actually communicating to you. Okay, good. So now let me take you to the types. I'll come to this table, a summary of intangible valuation approaches, a little later. But before that, I want to share with you the types. Please look at this tree. Wow, it's blossoming. So intangible assets, basically, please look at this. What you call this, you can differentiate it. Okay, the intangible assets, you can actually homogeneously, you have to group it. Okay, are defined and described by characteristics like ownership, function, market position, and image. Okay, so these characters differentiate intangible assets from one another. How they have differentiated like this: customer based, artistic based, technology based, contract based, marketing based. So why this point is very important? Because your approaches and methods is based on this. Your approaches and methods based on. For example, I'll show you one more table. I think this will be very interesting for you to know. Please look at this. The valuation methods. So the moment it is patent or trademark or brand, I will use a relief from royalty method. The moment it is customer relationship or customer contract, I will use the excess earning method. Or maybe it is assembled workforce, I'll use a replacement cost method. Maybe if it is a non-competing agreement, so I'll use a with and without method. So it's otherwise called an incremental cash flow method or with and without method, WWM method. So I'm not going into the method first. I'll first give the classification. What are the different types? How is it? Once you understand this, the classification, then we'll go into the method, and maybe 1 or 2 methods I'll try to actually explain how these methods are used for valuation also. Now, look at this. There is a slight difference between the IBS 210 and ICAI RVO 202. The slight difference is only in the way they use it. For example, IBS says market related or marketing related, but ICAI RVO 302 says it is marketing based. It is marketing based, it is marketing related. It is customer related, it is customer based. It is artistic related, it is artistic based. It is contract related, contract based. Technology related, technology based. So the only terms are, English is slightly different, not the meaning. So I'm just sharing with you the types. First, let me make this types very clear to all of you. Now, there are places where you may have to understand that it doesn't overlap. Now, I'll give you an interesting example. For example, will trademark is trademark, or for example, unique trade design or internet domain name. Internet domain name is say www. Okay, the ICMAI, RVO ICMAI.org or .in or whatever it is. Okay, so this is our RVO site. Now, this internet domain name, is it technology based? Because it is technology only, no. Why it is not technology based? Why it should be marketing related. Okay, so that is why this terms is very important. See, ultimately, any website today, for example, all business-oriented websites. So sometimes today I want to book a train ticket, I want to book a hotel, I want to buy a phone, I want to buy a lappy, I want to buy a laptop, I want to buy some dress material. So what I do, I go to a trade site. I understand. So here, please look at this: evolvement of business, further growth of business. So today, website is actually your identity, your first link to your customer. And I'm calling my kids for dinner. Okay, so all the 3 kids in my family, my brothers, my kids, and all my brothers' kids, we say, okay, we'll go for a dinner. So you know what they say? Dad, please wait. Where are we going? So I said, this is the name of the restaurant. They immediately type. So they have a smartphone and they immediately type it. Dad, this restaurant is only 2-star given out of 5 stars. So please, we are not coming. They have decided. Now, who is actually enabling or disabling? I have actually want to take the kids. Now they are now influenced by evolvement of business, further growth of business. Now reverse. Then I say, okay, 2-star, I don't know, yeah, you are more latest. Now tell me, this is the type of restaurant I want to take you to, a non-Chinese restaurant, but non-South Indian, but let it be North Indian style. Immediately they say, okay, North Indian, okay, in North Madras or in South Madras, which is the best one? Immediately they go, oh, this is 4.5 star, 4.8 out of 5. They go to the reviews. They find out whether any negative reviews are there. No. Decided we'll go there. My God, marketing related internet domain name today, it is connected to the evolvement of business. So the moment you are speaking about, please look at this: patented technology, database, formula, design. See, look at this place. Here it is design. There it is unique trade design. Trade design, evolvement of business, further orders. Design. Design is actually like a design used for a sari, a design used for your a product. Okay, so 20 years back, how your products used to be, how now the products are. That's called design. And that design is actually brain. Okay, that intellectual. So that is why it is called tech. What do you call it as? The design is technology based. Okay, they will use some model and they will arrive at a technology, software, process, recipe, and there is also a slight difference between technology based and artistic based, because artistic based is people oriented, and they call this as what is artistic based or benefits arising from the artistic work. People oriented, films, music, books. Music means author will write a book. Okay, music director, plays, copyright, all this stuff. So this is one place where you need to actually have a clarity first in distinguishing, because once you understand the type, then approaches, methods will be very easy. So please understand this. So from Global Finance Tracker, from the 3 standards, what is an intangible asset, then the purpose, then the types. Okay, so I don't want to go more deep into this particular part, but I want to give you a summary. Okay, I want to give you a summary. Okay, so what, why, how. Now I'm going to tell you how. So once you understand that these are the types of intangible asset category. Okay, so like a patent. Now I want to tell you something very interesting. Patented technology, unpatented technology. What is patented? I go to Indian Patent Office, Government of India, I get a registered patent. What is unpatented? The example what I told you, this Mitra Samaj in Udupi, the idli is very fluffy. And today people say, I'm a Udupi hotel. What is Udupi? Udupi formula. No, Udupi formula is actually patented, for your information. Now we have this Tirunelveli Halwa. Tirunelveli Halwa is not patented, but they have got a very good name. So, but whether it is patented, no. And for your information, Coca-Cola formula is not patented. Coca-Cola formula is not patented. And I want to share with you some interesting point here, guys. Please look here. Where is it? I want to show you this. Yes. This is ICA valuation standards, especially intangible assets. Okay. And here I want to show you one para. That one para you will be actually surprised. That is with respect to this patented and unpatented technology. Okay. Unpatented. So please look at this. This is in para number 28. I'll just read this para. To consider the legal rights of intangible assets to be valued, a registered trademark may have a higher value as compared to unregistered trademark. But ulta. This is for patent, it is ulta. An unpatented technology, as not in public domain, may have a higher value than a patented technology. What's the catch? And I'm telling you guys, there are certain places where ICA valuation standards are, they have done a good work. There are certain places where IVS have done a good work. So I want to give you the best from both. Okay. Here they have given a good amount of research. And IVS also, I will share with you some of the interesting points also. Okay. So that is with respect to this. I am taking you into this summary. Patents. The moment it is patent, I will use an income approach. Because primary method, okay. If it is a secondary intangible asset, okay, then I'll use a market approach. For example, assembled workforce. Assembled workforce is actually an intangible asset because it is not, it's very difficult to bring people together, the flock of people together. Sometimes the key person, if he is missing, he is not there, the assembled workforce will not come. Oh, our leader is not there, so why should I work there? This is the attitude. The assembled workforce is so that means there is an intangible asset involved. What is an intangible? So assembling the workforce, keeping them as a together, that's actually not an ordinary task. Okay, and that task actually, there is a very interesting word that was used by Narayan Murthy of Infosys. Every day our assets walk out of our company. We will not know whether they will return back the next day morning. Who are the assets? Human beings, employees. Okay, why? Because unless and otherwise you show something more than salary, you bring something beyond salary, that bondage, that connect, that only can keep the people together, not the emoluments or salary, that may not keep the people together. So that is very, very important to be noted here. Okay, so that this is just to give you an idea that different types of assets, you have various models. Now I'm taking you into the methods, otherwise called the approaches. So how? So let me take you into the various approaches one by one. Okay, good. Please look at this. So purpose is over. Now, so this part also I have discussed. I'm now taking you to the valuation approaches. Okay. So the right side, the table is actually given by the ICA RVO valuation standards, the valuation approaches, market approach, income approach, and cost approach. But in may I request friends to kindly keep your audio muted, please. Somebody has kept your. Thank you. Right. So valuation approaches and methods. So there are only 3 approaches, but please wait. As I proceed into the method, you will be in for a surprise because please look at the income approach methods. Okay, relief from royalty, multi-period excess earning method, with and without method, greenfield method, distributor method. I'll just share with you some interesting examples here. So in this particular method, please look at this. So this is that Tirunelveli Halwa and Mitra Samaj. And let me just share with you one table on this table. Please look at this. Is the methods I just shared with you. That what is the type of approach and what is the type of intangible asset? Multi-period excess earning method. So excess earning method, I will use a primary intangible asset. Okay, a technology. Relief from royalty, just now I gave some 3-4 examples like branding, the brand know-how, etc. With or without method, non-competing agreements. Greenfield approach, a greenfield method for franchisee agreements as well as for your broadband spectrum, okay, spectrum valuation. Distributor method is a secondary intangible asset. Now, if you look at this meme and second distributor, both seem to be somewhat connected because the excess earning method is used for a primary intangible asset and distributor method is used for a secondary intangible asset. Now, what is a primary intangible asset? What is a secondary intangible asset? Why meme? Why distributor? Meme, how will you do it? Distributor, how will you do it? With or without method, how will you do it? One by one, I'm just going to share with you. So we are now at 7:20. I'm going to take another 40 minutes. Okay. So 40 minutes, each method I'm going to explain, say maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes only. So please be very, very cautious now because this is very important because one method will be in one dimension, another method is in one dimension. I'll also show you some arithmetic examples also. So arithmetic examples so that we have a fair idea what we are discussing. Okay. So let me now start with maybe I'll since with this table I've started, I'll explain first with greenfield approach because this is the most I will say straightforward approach, straightforward. Okay. Now and slowly I'll try to add some mirchi masala. Okay. Now what is this greenfield? Okay, franchisee agreements. Okay. Now let me now take you to the greenfield here. Good. So the income approach. This is one example I'll be discussing on excess earning. Okay. Straight away I'll go to greenfield. So greenfield is here. And this is one method on relief from royalty. And this is with and without. And this is greenfield. Now, let me explain this particular part. This is the steps actually, A, B, C, D steps. First of all, let me explain what greenfield is. Then once I go to the steps, it will be very clear. Why the word greenfield? And today, we are using this word even for our new airport. Oh, their greenfield airport is going to come. So the old airport is dumped, but a new greenfield airport is going to come. So immediately people around that, the land prices will go up, shoot up. Now, what is greenfield approach? Now, I just showed you this slide where, what is this slide? Yes, here. Now, this guy, Mitra Samaj, actually this happened actually. I went to Mitra Samaj and had a one plate idli vada. I must say, one of the heavenly experience, okay? That too morning after darshan of Lord Krishna, Udupi Krishna, because you will get up at early morning 3 o'clock or 3:30, have bath, go to temple by 4 o'clock or 4:30, have darshan, and come out by 5:30 or 6 o'clock. You will be very hungry actually. So remember, guys, at Mitra Samaj at morning 6 o'clock, it will be busy. Okay. And hot idlis and vadas they'll be serving. Absolutely, I will say heavenly. Absolutely heavenly. And me and my friends, we were very fond. And one of my friends said, hey, why not we open one branch of this Mitra Samaj in Chennai? Okay. So immediately we approached that guy. My friend, do you have a branch in Karnataka? Okay. He said, no. Okay, you wish to have a branch? No, very difficult. That because they are actually generations. Some, if I'm right, Mitra Samaj is almost more than 2 generations they have been doing this. Now, I said, okay, we will do all the needful. You have to only give the recipe. Remember, you have to only give the recipe. We will do idli there, we will do vada there, everything we will do. Your name, Mitra Samaj, you will popularize it in Chennai. Okay. And please tell me whether you are interested. Then for franchisee, we'll pay fee. We'll pay lump sum amount. Then immediately he said, you said, how much you will pay? He said, we are very early stage, we are discussing. So actually he was also making, he was also not serious, but he wanted to actually know what is the figure. So we said that it involves a lot of steps. Once you are okay, we will do the valuation and we'll tell you how much will be there. Okay, we will. I will consider, but give me 1 week time. So this is the scenario. Now please come back to greenfield approach. This is your greenfield. So under greenfield, the subject, the value of the subject intangible. What is the subject intangible? Mitra Samaj is going to give a franchisee. Now today franchisee models are very common. Almost every business, whether it is biryani business or whether it is haircutting salon business, everywhere it is franchisee only. Okay. The value of the subject intangible is determined using how cash flow projections. Today you are going to give me the greenfield. Why it is called greenfield? Only based on the Mitra Samaj franchisee only, I am going to do business. Because if that franchisee is not there, there is no business for me. So using the cash flow projections that assume the only asset of the business at the valuation date is the subject intangible. So only asset of the business at the valuation date is the subject intangible. So from here only I am going to start all the cash flows for the next. That means there is a life for. That means he is going to give me a contract, identifiable contract. So he says, so Chennai Mitra Samaj right is given to Mr. Gopal Krishna Raju. Take it. So this is identifiable, separable, or he is giving legal rights. At the valuation date is the subject intangible. All other tangible, intangible assets must be bought, built, or rented. Apart from that, there can be other intangible. As far as you buy a software, billing software, that is also intangible asset only. So all other tangible, intangible assets must be bought, built, or rented. Because this is the primary intangible asset subject, and this is based on which you build the entire business. And say, let us take the franchisee life is 5 years. Franchisee life is 5 years. 5 years you have to project the cash flows. The revenues grow, expenses, depreciation, tax benefits, everything we have to do. So that is very simple. What do you say? What do you call it as the arithmetic is not new arithmetic. So what they say? Projection of revenue, expenses, capex, working capital, all this you have to ramp up now. And estimate the timing and amount of expenditures related to acquisition. Use the appropriate discount rate for the business. So this is whether you will use a VARA or whether you will use a WACC, weighted average cost of capital. So after that, you have to discount it and add the TAB for the subject intangible. This part I will again come because this tax amortization benefit they have given. This what we call TAB means. What is this TAB? What is this TAB? And add last you must add TAB also. What is TAB? Tax amortization benefit is given at the end. Please look at this. This is tax amortization. 110 para, 110.1, 110.2, 110.3, 110.4. The last 4 paras, they speak about tax amortization benefit. It may be you have to calculate, arrive at the present value and add to it. Okay, tax amount. I'll tell you how it is be done. Last. So this is what your greenfield approach is. Very, very simple and straightforward. Very, very simple and straightforward. Now, greenfield approach means do the cash projections, discount it, you arrive at the present value. The present value is actually the surplus because even your depreciation you have made, working capital minus and working capital plus you have taken, everything you have considered. So whatever is your present value plus present value, this is the surplus you are going to get. And that surplus is what the value of that particular subject intangible asset. For example, that plus is coming to some 40 lakhs. The moment you say 40 lakhs, he will say, no, 40 lakhs, nahi, 50 lakhs. That is the next negotiation. We will not go to negotiation table. 40 lakhs is what the surplus you will make. Next, he will say, okay, 40 lakhs is the value of this. How much is for you? How much is for him? Because he's a guy who is going to be a a shadow, otherwise called passive business partner. But I am an active business partner. So the active and passive business partner put together, we make 40 lakh surplus. So that means how much is for an active business partner, how much is for a passive business partner. So passive business partner will take for 25% or 40%. So he will take 15 lakhs or 16 lakhs. So that is the franchisee fee or the greenfield approach. So this is the way in which the greenfield method is suggesting, is prescribing the method. Now, since it is a very straightforward method, I have not given you any arithmetic, but I want to show you some arithmetic for relief from royalty. This is relief from royalty. Now, what is relief from royalty? This is also an income approach. Okay. And as I told you, for what type of methods you will, for what type of intangible assets you will use greenfield. Just now we saw that you will use the greenfield for franchisee agreement. Why? Because that is only sometimes broadband spectrum. Now, what is broadband spectrum? 5G license has to be given for Uttar Pradesh. So Uttar Pradesh Ministry of Information Technology and Broadcasting, they want to give a 5G license to an applicant. So the government of India engages. So you tell me what should be the valuation for this broadband spectrum license? What should be the minimum fee? What is the minimum bidding fee? We must say. After that, we will bid beyond that, and then government will get revenue for this. So, in case the 5G is given, because that is the only intangible asset as on the date, on that only he will build the entire business. So, what is the term for a license? 10 years, 20 years license. So, projection for the next 10 or 20 years, what should be the business expenses, ityadi, do all this stuff, discounted at an appropriate discounted, and then arrive at the present value. And this present value, government is a passive partner or passive regulator, and the active partner. So both of them have to actually earn out of this revenue. So government will say, okay, 50% is mine, 50 is yours, 60% is mine, 40 is yours. So some model they will work it out. Okay, so that is also a greenfield approach. Now please come to the relief from royalty. And where and all relief from royalty approach is used. So very interesting, and already I gave some few examples. Most probably like brand. Okay, so like for example, I already gave some very interesting stuff here for RFR. Please look at this. This is a very interesting part. Patent. Okay, trademark, brands, some developed technologies. So these are the assets, intangible assets, for which RFR method will be used. Relief from royalty methods will be used. Now let me take an example like a trademark. Okay, so like a patent. Okay, or like a brand patent. So I am the owner of a patent. Somebody wants, okay, you give me this patent, I will use it, and then I'll pay you something. So should they have to buy the patent? And if I give the patent to him, he will use my formula or my whatever the finding or the new product. He will do business. He will earn turnover. On the turnover, he will pay me a percentage. He will pay me a percentage. Okay. So that percentage is called royalty. Now, come to this method. Look at this method. So under relief from royalty method, the value of intangible asset is determined by reference to the value of a hypothetical royalty payments. This word is very important. Hypothetical royalty payments that would be saved through owning the asset. Please understand this. That would be saved through owning the asset as compared with licensing the intangible asset from a third party. So, when I license the patent, when I license the trademark, he has to give me the license fee. So, the trade-off is between should I have to license the intangible asset or shall I pay a lump sum and buy? If I pay a lump sum and buy, remember, I will save the royalty which I will be paying if I license it. Because if I license it, I will not pay an upfront fee. What I will pay is, see, you give me the license, I will do the business, I do the turnover. For example, very simple example is an author. He will write a book and he will give. What is royalty? Royalty is how many copies you sold. On that, what is the value? You will put a percentage and you will pay. So that is called royalty. So under relief from royalty method, the value of an intangible asset is determined by reference to the value of the hypothetical royalty payments that would be saved through owning the asset as compared with licensing the intangible asset from a third party. Conceptually, this method may also be viewed as a discounted cash flow applied to the cash flow that the owner of the intangible asset could receive through licensing the intangible asset to third parties. Okay. So this is from the owner's perspective. The first para is from the user's perspective. Now please look at this table. Okay. This is the revenue from trademarks. 300, 400, 500, 600, 750, 725 and for 8 years. Pre-tax royalty rate is 5%. So 5% of 300 is 15 million. And 5% of 400 is 20 million. Okay. So by using the trademark is revenues from the product. Okay. On the revenue, this is the pre-tax royalty. 5% of 500 is 25, 5% of 600 is 30, 5% of 200 is 10. So that is your royalty. And what is your tax, which is 34.61% of 15. So that is a tax saving. So what is your post-tax royalty saving? So it is 10. So 15 minus 5, it is 10. So this is your royalty savings. That is your relief from royalty. What we call it as relief from royalty is this. 10, 13, 16, 20, 25, 24, 6 and 7 million. Now, time factor is 0.5, 1.5. This is actually, all of you know that there is a convention called end of the year convention and mid-year convention. There is a concept called end of the year. End of the year means this is actually year 1, year 2, but this revenue is not earned at the end of the year. So therefore, it is not also earned at the beginning of the year. So it is an average throughout the year. So therefore, I will not discount at the first year, I will discount at the half year. It is not 2 year, it is 1 year and 2 year beginning. So in average is 1 plus 2 by 2. That is 3 by 2 is 1.5. So that is why it is called as a mid-year convention. He has used a mid-year convention and he has used a 15% percentile factor for mid-year. It is 1 divided by 1.15 whole power 1. No, it is 1 divided by 1.15 whole power 0.5. 1 divided by 1.15 whole power 1.5. So like that he has applied it and he has applied the percentile of post-tax savings. That comes to around 76. You add from 9, 11, 12, 13, everything, it will be 76. Actually, 76 is your present value of your relief from royalty. But on this, the tax amortization benefit also to be added. Tax amortization benefit. So that is given in para 110. So I will tell you how we need to do this. So once I explain one more method, after this I will explain one more method, that is the with and without method, as well as one more method is there, that is called as the excess earning method. Okay, so that excess earning method, distributor method also I'll try to explain. 1 or 2 arithmetic can give you an idea what actually we are referring to. So whatever I have explained here is given in this steps here. These are the key steps. So develop the projection associated, develop a royalty rate, then apply the selected royalty rate to the projection. Okay, estimate the expenses, Then what is hypothetical cost, all this stuff, determine the appropriate discount rate, and add the tab. Tab means what? The tax amortization benefit for the subject intangible asset. I'll explain to you how they arrive at 110 para. So this is the overall stuff with respect to the arithmetic part. Okay, so RFR. Now I'll take you to another very interesting method called as the excess earning method. Now this excess earning method, I have a simple arithmetic just to give you an idea how this is being worked out. Now I'll just explain to you what is this excess earning and what is this distributor method, when you will apply this excess earning, when you will apply the distributor method, what type of assets you will apply. So I just want to share with you this table first before going to the other stuff. So where is it? I'll just show you this table, very important table. Yeah, please look at this table. The excess earning method. Now I want to first share with you a very important point called as a primary intangible asset and secondary intangible asset. So please be very clear about it. Now, greenfield method, there was only one intangible asset. So you are able to do it. Relief from royalty, you are going to acquire or you want to license it. What is the what is the best approach? So you let me do the valuation part. If I have the money, I will buy. Otherwise, I'll go for licensing method. That is the next one. Now, this mean and distributor is where you have more than one intangible asset in your business. You have more than one. So I'll give you an example. For example, you are actually a technology company. You are a technology company, so your primary asset is a technology. For example, you are a cloud computing, you are an artificial intelligence company, you are a cloud technology company. So then which is your primary asset? You do business only because of your artificial intelligence, because of the software what you have developed, because of the product what you have developed. So fundamentally, you are a technology company. This is number one. Number two, apart from this, you will also have the other intangibles. For example, your customer relationships, customer list. I want to tell you this, guys. For example, all of you are professionals, chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants, okay, registered valuers. And our client list is our intangible asset. I repeat, our client list is our intangible asset. Yes or no? Yes. And repeat customers only will come. If as a registered valuer, you cannot entertain a repeat customer, so you have to only refer. So if I got the same reference from my other client, I will say, no. I as per section 247 of the Companies Act, I should, whatever work I have already done next 3 years, I should not do. Then only I can have that independence. So therefore, I'll refer to my friend M. Ramji from Chennai. So that is what I will do. So now we have this meme for a primary intangible asset and distributors for a secondary intangible asset. But Bapre, how I will then do the valuation? It's quite surprising. So that is why meme starts with the word M. I will say M is mother-in-law and D starts with the word distributor. So distributor D means daughter-in-law. Okay. So this is mother-in-law, primary intangible asset, technology. Okay. D distributor, daughter-in-law, secondary intangible asset. Okay. But which is primary, which is mother-in-law, which is daughter-in-law, the management will decide. Okay, your mother-in-law, your daughter, your primary asset and your secondary asset. Secondary intangible assets, primary intangible asset. Now, one moment you identify a primary intangible asset, what method you will apply? Now, the problem with this kind of valuation is excess earning for primary. So, take the entire earnings of the company. Subtract the earnings of the secondary intangible asset and other assets, remove it. The balance is the excess earning. Please look at this. So that is what the method here. Please look at this. That is the method here. You need to actually understand this. Very important. Okay. So what is multiplied excess earning method? Okay. Customer relationship, customer in process, R&D. This is primary intangible asset. And distributor method also will use because daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, same family only. So the arithmetic is almost similar. Only assets are different. That is primary, this is secondary. Okay. But both method are excess earning only. Slight, you have to, those are this side will be primary, those are the reverse side will be distributed. Okay. So now, let me tell you excess earning. This is a simple example of excess earning method. Okay. Now, after explaining this, I'll go into the, because it's about 7:45, I'll take another.
Dr. Saab, you have to share your screen again, I think. Someone changed the screen in between.
Oh.
So you'll have to,
sorry.
You'll have to share the screen again.
Sorry. I will. Yeah. So, hope I'm. Yeah. Yes. So this is one example of excess earning method. No, just a simple, very in a nutshell, I've just put it. So this is revenue from customers for the next, because all the 5 methods are income approach. So all future income. So the next 7 or 8 years, I'm just taking the revenue, okay, from my customers. So what is my EBIT is 15%. So 15% of 300 million is 25 million. On that, I apply the tax rate from with tax plus my whatever the surcharge plus the 4%. I'll just put it. So some chiller percentage I will get. So that 34.61% of 45 becomes 16 million. So profit after tax is 29. But this is the profit of the entire company. Now I want the excess earning. So that means I will subtract, I will knock off the earnings received from all the asset except the intangible asset. So that means, what are all the assets I have? Tangible fixed asset, working capital, other intangible, other than the primary intangible, then workforce. So on this, I will apply a charge. This is called charge, and I'll apply the charge on the respective value, and I'll arrive at this value. So this 1.8 is 0.6%, 0.6%, not 60%. 0.6% of the tangible fixed asset, other than, so tangible fixed asset, which is not connected with that intangible asset. So please look at this contributory asset charge. This is what contributory asset means. The excess earning method estimates the value of the intangible asset as the present value of the cash flow attributable to the subject intangible asset after excluding. So what I'm excluding, this I'm subtracting total CAC. The CAC I'll subtract from 29. 29 minus 5.85 is 24.15. 39 minus 7.20, it is 31.20. So like that I'll subtract it. This is called available excess earning. This is the excess earning. After that, the time factor, there's what do you call it as the mid-year convention, present value factor 16%, I get the present value total, and the tax amortization benefit factor, multiply with it, I'll get this. So anyway, either you add it or multiply, you get it. Now, this portion is the most important portion of the entire excess earning. Otherwise, this is your earnings, subtract the CAC, you get the excess earnings. Now, what is CAC? Sorry, what is CAC? Please look at this. After excluding the proportion of the cash flows that are attributable to other assets, please look at this word. Other assets means other than the primary intangible asset required to generate the cash flow. That is called contributory asset. It is often used for valuation. Generally, when two valuers they talk to each other, hey, what is the CAC rate you have applied for tangible asset for that company, for a paper company, for a pharma company, for an automobile company, for a power plant. Okay, so for a startup company, what did you use? The CAC is actually a term that is the language that is used only by valuer. It is a valuer's language. Okay, it is often used for valuation, where there is a requirement for a business between tangible assets and identifiable intangible assets and goodwill. So what is a contributory asset? These are assets that are used in conjunction with the subject intangible asset in the realization of the prospective. Please look at this word. Contributory assets, the assets that are used in conjunction, means along with, in addition, in together. That is why in conjunction. Very, very nicely they have actually drafted. And the same wordings are there even in, I must tell you guys, even the same wordings are there even in your, what is it, your 302. 302. ICAI RVO valuation standards 302. Please look at this. This is RFR. Where is mean? Please look at this mean here, guys. This is the standard. This is your ICAI valuation standards. And what is your contributory asset charge? Your contributory asset charge or economic rent to be reduced from the total net cash flow projected from the entity combined to obtain the incremental after-tax cash flow attributable to the intangible asset to be valued. Same. So whatever your IVS also speaks, the same language, maybe in a different style, ICAI RVO valuation standards 302 speaks about. Okay. So assets that do not contribute to the prospective cash flows associated with the subject intangible asset, primary intangible asset, the mother-in-law intangible asset, they are not contributory assets. Okay. So that is why they call as excess earning. Now please look at this example. And the 0.6% on the tangible fixed asset. Now one interesting point is this tangible fixed asset will be increasing year after year, year after year, year after year. Asset will increase. So therefore your tangible fixed contribution from the tangible fixed asset, this is a percentage which you have to work it out based on your past. Based on your past working, you need to do a working. So that is why, remember guys, greenfield method of working and arriving at the intangible asset valuation, fees can be less. But an excess earning method, for which you have to arrive at the primary intangible asset valuation, fees should be actually minimum. My assessment will be 5x. So if you charge one for your greenfield method valuation, 5x you must charge for an excess earning method. Because method involves that much of computer. This is also arithmetic, that is also arithmetic. Wrong, absolutely wrong. Because you have to give an explanation. What is tangible fixed asset? What is net working capital? What is other intangible? What is your workforce? On what basis you actually did all this stuff? Now please look at this. So this is the method for your multi-period excess earning. Forecast the amount, forecast the expenses, adjust the expenses, and I'm sorry. This is your contributed asset charge should be made for all the current and future tangible and intangible that contribute to the generation of the cash flow. And if an asset for which a CAC is required is involved is more than one line of business, each CAC should be allocated to different lines of business involved. So very, very nicely they have captured. Now, I've come to the 753, so I will take only one more method and then I'll try to actually close my discussion with this. With and without method. I repeat, guys, with and without method is actually a very, very important method. This generally will be used for what type of assets? Whenever there is an agreement like a non-competing agreement. Okay, non-competing agreement is, they say there are two contractors who have bid for a particular work. So L1 is going to one guy, L2 is for one guy. The L2 guy is approaching L1 guy. See, if you withdraw, because another 2 days is there, if you withdraw, I'll be the only guy, I will get this contract. So I will give a share to you. Okay, non-competing agreement, we both will sign, and I will actually offer a share to you, provided that is acceptable. I'm just giving an example for you to give. And this also happens even in not only here, but also in every business. Every business it happens. Just to give an example, I've just taken this. Now, how do the guy who is in L1 will give an offer, or what the L2 guy will give an offer? On what basis? So the L1 guy, he is already having 4 contracts. And this contract will be the 5th contract. So with this 5th contract, what will be the total revenue? What will be the total expenses in future? Subtract depreciation, tax benefit, everything, arrive at appropriate discount rate, put it, arrive at the present value. That is called with the contract, what will be your present value. Now remove this. Without this contract, what is this balance for? Already you are doing your business. What is your cash flow? What is your expenses, depreciation, ityadi, tax benefits? Take the appropriate discount rate, discounted, arrive at the present value. The present value for without the new contract, present value with the new contract. Naturally, present value benefit with the contract will be higher. Present value without the benefit will be lower. The difference will be the with and without method, the intangible asset value. For non-competing agreement to sign, that is a surplus he is going to. That surplus, he will say, I will be a passive partner in your business by withdrawing. So how much you will pay? 25%, 40%, 50%, 70%. So on that surplus. So this is how the valuation is done for with and without. So the method I already explained to you. So guys, I must say, maybe last but not the least, the tax amortization benefit, that part alone I'll try to make this. But before that, I want to make one more observation. In IBS, see in in the Ind AS 38, okay, there is a term that is used to called as your what do you call this? Useful life. Useful life. Please look here. Amortization of the systematic allocation. Okay, useful life. So useful life. So what is useful life? The period over which the asset, intangible asset, is expected to be available for use, or the number of production or similar is expected to be obtained from an asset by an entity. Very good. This is useful life. But I want to tell you guys, in IBS, they don't use a word called remaining useful life or useful life. They use a word called economic life. For example, you have an intangible asset which has a remaining useful life, say 7 years. 3 years is over. 10 years is a total life. 3 years is over. Remaining useful life is 7 years. But your competitor is already developing a similar or even a much better product, much better intangible asset than your product. And that will be in the market in the next 2 years. So, the moment that product, which is a better, robust product than your product in the market, what will happen to your product? Govinda. So, valuation for your intangible asset is not based on remaining useful life, it is only based on your economic life. So, what is the worth of it? Economic benefit will be coming only for the next 2 years. Not the same will happen even in India. Is also they say every year you have to test your, you have to do the impairment testing, and sometimes your life can come down because your remaining useful life is based on the economic benefit also. So there also this logic is there, this concept is there. But in the way they say that you have to review the useful life every year. So that's what they say. And tax amortization benefit is very simple. All of you are professionals, so very easy to appreciate this. It's nothing but in India. So in many tax jurisdictions, they say intangible assets can be amortized for tax purpose, reducing a taxpayer's tax burden and effectively increasing cash flows. So depending on the purpose of valuation and the valuation method, it may be appropriate to include the value of tax amortization benefit in the value of an intangible. Okay, in the value of an intangible. So the meaning is, in case this intangible asset is bought, is bought and it has been capitalized, you get the amortization on that intangible asset, and that amortization has a tax benefit. So that tax benefit also has to be considered at present value. That is what Anandan says. It's very, very interesting, guys. It's very interesting. Okay, because by buying this intangible asset, you are going to get the tax benefit, which is not been considered. So that is what they say here. This is how the stuff it will be calculated. They have given here. So I don't want to spend more time beyond this. It's almost 8 p.m. I must say thank the ICMA RVO for giving this wonderful opportunity. But before I close the session, may I invite questions from members? Almost 62 people are online. Many of you are known to me personally also. So may I now request participants to share your views. Maybe I'll just start with Mr. Kapil Maheshwari. Kapil Maheshwari, can you just unmute yourself and share your...
Thank you, Doctor. Very nice session. A very relevant topic in current times also. So I had two questions. So one is with respect to the meme. So say if there is a case which I'm in discussion with currently, there is a technology company which has multiple SBOs, and they are divesting one of the SBOs into a new SPV, into a new company.
Yeah.
So, one of the common method is you do a DCF based on, apply an income approach, do a DCF. Maybe the other possible, because this is a technology company, the other method could be where we could identify some of these intangibles and, in the cost approach and see how the NAV would also look like parallelly.
Yeah.
So my question is, for a new SBU, so it doesn't have really any historical that this particular business unit only have certain patent rights or some technology rights, contractual rights are there, but no historical data as such would be there because it would start generating revenue in subsequent years. Can something like meme can be applied on it because we don't know what the contributory asset charge on some of the other intangibles would be, like historical data is not available.
You can definitely apply because see, nowhere standard prescribes that you should have a past record. So you can go by the, for example, strength of the business, strength of the revenue is only based on the strength of your technology. So that is why they use a word called economic life. So if your economic life is say 3 years or 5 years, and not necessary that you must have a track or a trend. Sometimes a technology company, it may be very fast, maybe few months to maximum year or two to actually pick up the revenue. It will be a vertical growth with respect to revenue.
Right.
So therefore, all this, what do you call it as a story, all this possibilities, all this reasoning, you have to actually sit with the management and understand their future prospects, and then you can narrate it in your report. That will actually strengthen you. So,
and would the new co balance sheet say if we have done all these asset identification on intangibles would be done, because the current balance sheet would really not have these intangibles. So say customer, well, there won't be a customer relationship in this case because they are starting new. But some of these, so will that new co balance sheet be reinstated as per our thing, or there would be one goodwill amount?
No need to actually touch the balance sheet. Balance sheet is one indicative figure. From there, you can actually start your journey. So
okay.
No need to touch that.
Okay. And my other question is with respect to TAP, the tax amortization benefit. So while we have taken a tax advantage, right? So depreciation, so the tax benefit because of the expense royalty saving which we are doing. So so once we are owning that asset, so that benefit of tax amortization is coming to us, but then that expense or tax saving would not happen, right?
It will not happen. Correct, absolutely.
So one at one place only we
at one place you have to consider. Absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, may I now request Sumit Gupta? Or may I request? Yes.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, absolutely. Please go ahead. Let me hear your
Yeah.
feedback, please.
Raju sir, as I am not missing any of your, presentation wherever it is, on any of the platform. And the kind of insights you are imparting in the valuation field, and connecting with the various standards laid down by ICI RVO and the IVS. It's absolutely going directly to the people who are taking these learnings, and they are totally unforgettable, and valuable in their practice as well as for their exam. So it's an overwhelming learning which we are getting from you. So thank you so much for imparting such a knowledge.
So nice of you. So nice of you. And may I now request Salai Kumaran, kindly unmute yourself and share your reflections, please.
Hello.
Very good evening, Salai Kumaran.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thanks for calling me. See, I'm still a student in valuation. No, yeah, I'm hearing all your, attending all your programs. It's very useful. And today's, I was really little confused about this intangible assets valuation, and suddenly I saw the program link today and joined a little late actually. Maybe after 30-35 minutes I joined, and really no, it has really enlightened me and has given a good perspective about it. Actually, I'll further study your presentations and get through it. Yeah. Really, no, you have been really contributing very good value for this field, sir. I really appreciate. I really wonder how you have time to do so much. Every day you are doing it. No, I really wonder how you have time to do so much contribution to this field.
Mr. Anand Gavade, may I request Mr. Anand to share your thoughts and questions with me, please. Mr. Anand. Mr. Nagendran. Okay. Mr. Adagappan. Or Kotishwarao Garu. Very good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Very nice, sir.
Sir, you were one line of suggestion or your feedback.
Yes, sir. Very nice, sir. Actually, this I understood ICI standards also now. Actually,
Yeah.
Only for IVS previously. It's very helpful to me, sir. This one.
Thank you. Mr. Ramji Mahadevan. Very good evening, Mr. Ramji Mahadevan. Kindly unmute yourself. Mr. Mohan Sundaramji. Mohan Sundaramji. Okay, right. Mr. Amit. Mr. Amit.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, very good evening, and it's a very nice presentation. One very nice presentation, very deep inside knowledge. But one more thing, because a lot of presentation is more on theoretical side. I would like, if it is more on practical side, more on arithmetics and how the CAC or other information can be retrieved from which are the sources available.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a very good point you have made it. This is the kind of suggestion I was expecting. Now, what we need to do is, this is a session on valuation of intangible assets from a macro perspective. We need to have a 1 hour or another 2 hour session exclusively on mean. For example, case study on valuation of intangible assets of, for example, a technology company using me.
Yes.
That alone, so I need to give the entire case, explain, narrate, past example, what data you will take, how will you arrive at CAC, that percentage, what will be the past data, how will you actually connect it. So that actually will take minimum of an hour or 90 minutes, sir.
I understand that, sir.
So that actually is a very good suggestion. I think we need to do this in the next phase. So how each method have to be done with a case study.
Absolutely right, sir.
So I think this.
I have one question also with you regarding this. I am doing one brand valuation for a client.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a company which is in, I think, in third generation. So it's a 50-60-year-old company. And so what we are doing in the brand is we are going with the like basic income approach method. With branded thing have a more income and less expenses. So there is a basically excess earning in the branded, and non-branded there is a less earning. So on the basis of that, we have calculated the brand value. So do we have to do anything related to the tab you have talking about tax amortization benefit in that separately, or
no, unless and otherwise it warrants, it is not that it is mandatory that you have to take it. So it is unless and otherwise it is required, only we will take it. But that prescription is also there.
Okay. So I think that would be part of the itself in the cash flow itself. It would be mitigated.
If it is actually there, then you need not do it.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much. So now let me request the coordinator, Mr. Sandeep Bhai. Are you there? Mr. Sandeep?
Dr. Saab, one more question. Before maybe so Kapil this side, Kapil Maheshwari this side. So in Indian context, we get an amortization on goodwill as well, the residual, after all the intangibles being identified, even the goodwill. Now, this is not the case in many jurisdictions, so you don't get amortization benefit on goodwill, but in India, because of the Supreme Court judgment, the goodwill amortization. So is really TAB applicable, because there is for that particular intangible asset there even if you don't take that, so whatever is my residual value which is in the goodwill form, I'll still get the tax benefit out of that.
Absolutely. That is why if you read the standard, that it will actually start with the wording called in many tax jurisdictions, intangible assets can be amortized for tax purposes, reducing a taxpayer's tax burden and effectively increasing cash flow. It will start from that paragraph. So unless and otherwise it has been mandated or facilitated by the respective tax laws, then only that para is applicable. Otherwise, we can keep it aside.
Right. So even like the residual goodwill also is getting so even if that's the reason, no need to really identify that into a particular intangible asset also, because on the residual goodwill also one is getting.
Absolutely. So that is the place where, as a valuer, we need to actually take the respective prescription. I mean the provision of the income tax law, which actually gives that benefit. Take that and then do that. Take that factor also in the valuation aspect. So that is why they are doing it at the end as one line. So not as part of your major work.
Right.
Thank you very much. May I find Mr.
Raju sir, there is one question from my side.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is with reference to one listed company acquiring some company overseas.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have paid the transaction is like they have fair valued their entire assets. Okay. And beyond that, some more consideration they have paid. So that excess consideration has been charged to the goodwill.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, out of the goodwill, they they have come to us that the entire excess payment can't be charged to goodwill. Some valuation has to be given to the customer and their customer list. Like, so if you want to value, I think it's an intangible valuation only.
Correct.
Okay. So for that, which would be the appropriate method? As you have this, shown in your presentation, meme is there for primary intangible asset.
You have to go by distributor method.
Yeah. So what exactly is the distributor method? What is the difference? How does it differentiate from meme?
Actually, distributor method is, I told you, it is like the other side of dosa. So you take the total, what do you say, the revenue, the profit, what do you say, the earnings before interest and tax, and then you take the earnings, subtract the CAC, the contributory asset charge. Now, when you take the contributory asset charge, you remove the other intangibles. So, other than the primary intangibles. So, when you do the distributor method with respect to the customer list or whatever the customer contracts, there the primary intangible assets, CAC, you will actually knock off. That is so, method is same, only the other side of, that is why I say, it is omelette, the other side of omelette is the distributor method. So, that is why it is called distributor. So the arithmetic is same. That is why that is also excess earning method. That is also excess earning.
No, sir, I didn't get it exactly. Can you repeat?
Sir, distributor method is also excess earning method only.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Okay.
only the approach is different. So what you do? What is the excess earning here? In the primary intangible asset, you take the earnings of the entire company and then knock off the contributory assets. When you knock off the contributory asset, you consider the other intangibles other than the primary intangibles. But in the distributor method, you will take the same earnings minus the contributory asset charge. When you are bringing the other intangibles, you will take the primary intangible assets, the contributory asset charge, and then knock it off. That's all.
Okay.
So your arithmetic will be different.
Okay.
So that is why when you look at the paragraphs, it will be quite cumbersome. But when you do the arithmetic, if I remove the top line of mean method and top line of the distributor method and give you both the statements, it will look as though arithmetic is saying except numbers are different.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, I am Raghu.
Yes, Mr. Rahul Rangnekar.
Yeah, hello, sir. It was a good session. I just had one query, sir, is when we talk about contributory asset charges,
Yeah.
how do we arrive at the percentages, whether it's 1%?
That is the question actually. That is the question actually. Mr. Amit also asked the same one. This is, I'll give you one example. For example, you have to calculate with respect to, say, the tangible assets. The tangible assets contributory asset charge. Where in my example, it was some 0.6%.
0.6, yes.
6%. So how do you arrive at this? So you need to go back, for example, you can take a past 5-year data or a past 3-year data, and you need to actually take lot of inputs, not only from the accounts, but also from the cost data, because many of you are cost accountants and we are addressing as part of the Institute of Cost and Management Accounts, RBO only. So we need to take a lot of cost data. Cost center wise, we need to, what do you call it as I'll give you a very interesting example. Say we have this in overheads, you will actually arrive at something called as an AB rate. Now what is called as AB rate? This is a rate at which you charge the cost to, you distribute the cost. Similarly, you need to actually arrive at the revenue part and also the after tax portion with respect to the tangible fixed asset. Now, this The explanation may seem to be very odd, but it is not odd. Why? Because Ind AS 108. What is Ind AS 108? Operating segment. I repeat the word operating segment. So segment wise, if you have the information with respect to segment wise data. So that is why I said that fees charging for valuing intangible asset in excess earning method, you must charge 5x times. Why? Because arriving at this work calculation will be very cumbersome. You need to have more data, more inputs. Maybe if it is not there, you need to do it. And maybe if you do it, that information or that calculation will be useful even for the company. So far, they have not considered to go for a segment, operating segment at all. They have not considered. But after your working and your interaction with the company, they may think of reporting even an operating segment. So that is, I must actually appreciate your question for asking this. So that is why maybe we must make one request to ICMA RVO to have a case study on me.
Yeah, that will be useful actually, because I mean, I was under the impression when we say we take 0.6% as contributory charge for tangibles, does it mean that my contribution of tangible assets to the profits is only 0.6%?
0.6% of the value of that tangible fixed asset. So which you need to do a working. So that is also profit after tax. It is after tax.
Yeah, because if you look at the overall balance sheet size, vis-a-vis that 0.6% seems very, very minuscule. So
this is only to give you an idea, but it can be high, it can be less also, but it all depends upon the informations.
Great. Sir, this presentation, would you be sharing it with us?
Yeah, definitely. Immediately now I'm sharing it to.
Can I make a request? If you have some specific commentary on contributory asset charge, would it be possible to share something on that, or maybe some illustration along with the presentation?
I'll just make, because I have it in a very raw form. I'll try to make it in a presentable.
Add a couple of slides on that, and then share. That will be useful, sir.
Sure, definitely. So nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So may I now request Mr. Sandeep Joshi to kindly do that.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for a very good session. And I thanks to all the participants for joining this webinar with Mr. Raju ji. And thank you so much, sir, once again. And I just request to all the participants once again, please do mark your attendance in the chat box for record purpose, attendance purpose. So we can just give you the CPRs. Please mention your name, your registration number if you have not marked yet. So please mark this attendance. And once again, thank you so much, Gopal Krishna Raju ji. Thank you very much, sir. And thanks to all participants for taking this Saturday webinar with ICMA RVO. So we can just conclude this session over here. And